one side you have a living room, to the other side you have a dining room. These large cased openings that with that trim, it's not big enough. It's not proportioned well for those big cased openings. I wonder if there's something you can do in those locations.
Right.
Yeah.
That's often a place where you can take a departure and it's okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to the Fine Home Building Podcast. This is our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. Welcome to the show, y'all. If you're new to the show, welcome, welcome. If you're old to the show, welcome back. Guten Tag, hola, Ohio. I am joined by the usual suspects, Brian and Rob. And today we're going to be talking about actually a wide variety of topics. We have some questions. We have some things unscheduled that I'm going to throw in the mix just to keep things interesting, throw you guys off your game a bit. But first and foremost, Mr. BP is
What'd I do?
fresh off.
Guilty, Brian?
Yeah, I don't know.
That was quick.
Back from South Dakota, where you were visiting Mr. Ben Brunick, who is a very accomplished woodworker who posts under the name Chalkstone Woodworks or Chalkstone Woodworking.
Chalkstone Woodworking, I believe.
It's one of those two, Woodwork or Woodworking. I can't remember, but you'll find him at one of those two places
on Instagram. Yeah,
and you will love all of the videos he posts. It's like your daily moment of zen of awesome woodworking techniques. And you were out there shooting 2 articles.
I shot 2 articles.
And a bunch of video.
Some video.
A bunch of video.
I shot 2 articles. Ben's working on a historic restoration right now, and most of the work that he's doing there is repairing the old window sash and repairing and replacing, replicating the plaster crown molding. As you mentioned, Ben's a phenomenal woodworker. And interestingly, I think his background is interesting. Ben learned woodworking through restoring pool tables. And I should have looked it up. If I knew we were going to talk about Ben, I would have looked it up because I can't remember the name
If you read the notes, catching up on Brian's trip to South Dakota, the first bullet point.
I thought we were going to talk about my ride on the river.
We could talk about that if you
Missouri.
want.
Sunsets.
Not what
Sunset
I was doing
cruises.
there for work. Yeah, my sunset cruises. I sent Rob a photo. There's a couple of names, a couple of pool table. I guess probably they were builders, not brands at the time, but historic pool tables that are highly sought after as both antiques and playable tables. And Ben he was working for a company that was somehow in that industry, and he got he started the specialty of restoring these pool tables. And pool tables have, as Ben explained it to me, they have some very simple joinery. The bases are very much almost like a timber frame structure. They're really stout, big bases that have, very traditional types of mortise and tenon joinery. But the tabletops themselves, the rails particularly, have a lot of complex shapes and a lot of complex joinery, especially when you start to get into repairing them and making them and making them work. So that was sort of Ben's path into, I think it sounded like he was doing some production kind of work in a factory like shop, and then when they started doing this, Ben sort of got the chance to jump on that and get into that. And so that's his into woodworking. And from that, he's developed like this deep passion for woodworking and home building, and now works for himself. And right about when he was about ready to build and open a shop and get into custom woodworking, when he got hired to work on this restoration project, which is a multi-year project. He set up a shop.
Historic complex, right? That he's working on.
It's a massive historic complex in South Dakota. They're turning it into a museum, a historic building, and he had the opportunity to set up his shop there and just work on this place for all these years. And he's had to develop methods for both this process of doing this plaster crown, repairing and replicating this plaster crown, and traditional window restoration, sash restoration and repair, and rebuilding with modern tools and materials these or building new sash where they couldn't be repaired.
Oh, I gotcha.
Using modern.
Oh, that's the most amazing thing. His
Tools and
level of
equipment.
consistency is unreal. You could, he makes a whole stack of these archtop, like Palladian kind of windows.
Yeah.
And he just stacks them all. Rob, please. He stacks them all up, and they're all like perfectly lined up. Now you may go.
His background as a woodworker was interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because of the work that he's doing now, which is kind of like preservation carpentry almost.
Yes.
So I just wonder if you notice, did that woodworking background influence what you were seeing on site? Like, is he using different types of tools that you normally wouldn't see from a carpenter, or is his shop outfitted a little bit different than most,
Did you know
carpenters?
any of the tools in the shop?
Yes.
Had you seen any of them before?
So he's got the best woodworking shop I've ever seen in terms of both setup and equipment.
Better than mine, even?
You mean things are sharp in that shop?
Well, that's funny because I was meeting
Does he have
him
a coconut head?
One of the mornings I was meeting him, I walked in and he was sharpening tools, and it was like
Show off.
standing at his bench sharpening he got a new shooting plane. He was just getting the blade ready to go in that thing, and he admitted. Didn't take long for him to admit that he didn't need the tool.
Exactly.
He had an idea of when he might use it.
Sure.
And so
He buckled under that pressure pretty quick.
Yeah, and so he leaped at the opportunity. A beautiful shooting plane from Veritas.
Yep.
But yeah, he's bought all the equipment that he needs to do this work and to do it well. In fact, he's set up now to be a window shop. If he wanted to make custom, because he's got so much work to do there that it was worth the investment.
Do you have an
If he wanted to
idea?
make custom windows, he could.
Do you have an idea how many windows he's restored in this project?
I'd have to imagine it's hundreds.
So this is
Between
perfect author, is what you're
storms,
saying.
double sash,
Yeah.
and now he's working on his house, which is what we documented.
Oh, cool.
These sash he's working on. He's got a really nice craftsman bungalow, and he's got these old, weighted window sash, single paned, historic glass that he's got to fix and update, and so we photographed that process.
Yeah, this is a guy that we found through Instagram, and like we said, anybody can go on there and check out his stuff and follow him. But the way that he primarily posts, primarily communicates in non-text form. Like if you send him an email, he'll call you.
Yes.
And he prefers to shoot video to describe what he's doing, and he just has this super honest, casual way where you really feel like you're just hanging out with him when he's describing the most elaborate and crazy things that you're seeing happen.
Honest is a good word to describe Ben, both in character. He likes to tell you right away when he doesn't know something or doesn't feel expert in something, and honest in work, and no shortcuts. So the magic moment in his window sash restoration is when he uses this homemade steam box to soften the glazing so he can pop the glass out. So once the sash are out of the windows, he fires up this steam box that is essentially a turkey fryer with a gas can on top of it, so that he has just a little nozzle, and then he runs some plumbing, some hose into this box made of essentially rigid foam, and then some.
We should clarify, because I had the same problem with the actual photo as I do with your description of it. Is the gas can is full of water?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, it's a steam box.
assumed.
It's a steam box.
Yeah.
We can't use a pot like the turkey fryer pot because you just lose all your steam. So
Yeah,
now
yeah. Cooking
use
cans
the
of
metal gas
gasoline.
can. Correct. I guess I got to remember that detail
Yeah.
when we publish the article.
Let's try to write it that way.
Yeah. So anyway, he has the sash out, and he fires this thing up, and he sticks the sash in there. And it's not too simple, because you do have to be careful to bring the sash up to temperature very evenly, and that is part of both when you put the sash in and how you build this box, so that it's very evenly heated, or otherwise your glass will break. Right? It'll heat and cool unevenly, and it'll just instantly break. But anyway, after about 45 minutes, he slides the sash out of here, and now the glazing is soft, and he can pop the glass right out. But getting back to the honesty, the paint's also soft. And I would fathom to guess that any one of us sitting at this table would be scraping that paint off immediately.
For sure.
But Ben doesn't.
I've done it.
Ben doesn't, because he says no matter how well you do that, you're going to make the wood fuzzy.
Yeah.
You're gonna degrade the quality of
Interesting.
the rails and stiles. And so he waits, and then he scrapes the paint
The hard way.
the hard way.
Wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
But he says it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he offered to come on the show, so hopefully we're gonna have him on.
He'd be great.
And we could just kind of chat and maybe hear about the scope of his project. Maybe we'll time that out so it's closer to when his article is going to come out.
Yeah, and we should ask him about the pool tables too, because it's fascinating.
Yeah,
and I really need to hear about it. He worked on. I mentioned this to you guys at lunch the other day. He worked on the pool table that's in the White House.
Yeah.
Just
picture Obama in there calling those shots.
Calling those shots.
Rob, you getting a roof put on your house today while you're here?
You know, I don't think so. Why I don't think so is that the roofers were supposed to either be there yesterday or today.
Yes.
And it's currently 95 degrees outside.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So what?
I haven't gotten in touch with them, but so what? So I don't think you want to be installing a roof when it's 95 degrees and
I
walking
don't want
on
to be,
walking
but
on
I don't want
fresh
to be a roofer.
shingles. Yeah.
If he does it from the top down, you don't have to walk on them. I got an article for you if you need to.
Do you?
We just
Mike can put it up in the show notes for you.
So a little bit of context, that editorial advisor, Mike Girton, has a process of shingling that he calls the top-down method. And he has a whole host of reasons why that's preferred over the conventional method. One is that you don't have to walk on the shingles.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard to wrap your head around. It changes your process a lot.
It changes your process a lot, and Mike's, he does have his reasons, and your roofers could be working today if they were to shingle from the top down. He gets hammered for that for that story.
Yep.
We posted on social media, and it gets hammered, and we get letters. We got letters when we published it. But I don't think you can argue with the reasons. Mm-hmm. Whether you decide to do it or not, you may not feel like it's going to work for you. You may not feel like it's efficient or whatnot, but
it's usually the case with Mike. I mean, usually you can't really argue against.
It's defensible.
It's always defensible.
Yeah.
It's always a little pushing the envelope, or a lot pushing the envelope.
So we'll put the article on the show notes page, people to check out. But just one real quick question: is Mike doing the roofing himself, or has he ever spec'd this approach?
I think he doesn't. I mean, Mike has a lot of experience as a roofer.
Yeah.
I mean, he wrote a book on roofing for Taunton.
Just wonder if ask the average roofing crew to shingle the top down, they're just going to stare at you and be like,
"Oh yeah, it's slower."
No.
No, we're not doing it that way. Yeah. So anyway,
they would never take the job. No way.
They'd pass on it immediately.
Yeah.
I'm ready for roofing. So whether that happens, hopefully it happens this week. But what else am I doing over there? The dormers.
Black shingles?
Pewter gray.
Pewter gray.
Yeah.
What brand are you going with here?
Timberline.
Not a sponsor.
HDs in pewter gray. So the last, it's kind of been sitting dormant. I broke down all the staging, like the A-frame staging.
Right?
Yeah, they're owned by GAF. Broke down all the staging and got all my crap out of the way so that the roofers could come in and set up what they want to set up. I don't know if they would be totally stoked with scampering around on the A-frame staging that I set up, even though it was really rock solid. So
those 2x10s stretch between. Hey, that's what I would define as rock solid.
Those OSHA approved 2x10s.
Rock solid.
Rock solid. So the last work that I really did was trimming the roof lines of the dormers. I think I mentioned in previous podcasts that I'm going with AZEK trim, which is an interesting material to work with. I have not worked with it before. I've always heard about how flexible it is. It's astonishing how much that stuff moves. But it looks great.
Wait, well, how flexible?
How flexible it is.
Yeah, and how much it moves. But you haven't found that part yet.
Yeah, I have to wait for a couple heating and cooling cycles to see how that stuff performs.
So did you leave gaps? I mean, how did you deal with the expansion and contraction on your first go?
So yeah, essentially, well, I guess the trim, I guess we could post photos. I should have sent them ahead of time. We could put them up on the TV, but I'll get them up on the blog. Is that it's really simple trim. Again, I'd mentioned that Mike Maines designed these dormers, and the trim on my cape is really simple, all flat stock. And so these the trim on the dormers are, I guess, what you would call maybe not actually poor man's crown, but there's essentially no rafter tails, and so I just put a fascia against the angled cut, so I didn't plumb cut the rafter
They're
tails.
square cut rafter
So they're
tails.
square cut rafter tails.
They look
So they're-
awesome.
Yeah. And I did a double rake detail. So took a ripping and applied that over before putting drip edge. And so there is a gap left at where it hits the roof. So you could slip the shingles under there. And then I just butt jointed the joint between the fascia or the eave and the rake. I use a combo of GRK screws and Cortex screws. So GRK is like where they would be hidden by that double rake, and where they'd be hitting by the drip edge. And then I use Cortex screws where they were kind of like in the width and the exposed end of the fascia.
Why not?
And those things are cool.
Why not just use Cortex screws, but then not plug the holes where they're going to be hidden? Why switch? To different
Cortex
drivers?
screws, I forget.
Because GRKs are star drive, Cortex are square.
Yeah. And I forget how many screws that I get in the Cortex box for $20 per box.
Yeah.
And then how much you get in a GRK fastener. But one thing I was thinking about, I've been thinking about this a lot as I've been working on the upstairs of my house and framing the dormer specifically and trimming things out. Fortunately, I've been able to work with my father on pretty much most of the project.
Who's a builder?
Who's been a builder for 40 years, but still somehow managed to just run around a roof and just rock and roll. And so it's great to have not only that resource when you kind of get into a jam, like, what do you think we should do here, but also like that other set of helping hands. And that's especially true when we were installing the trim. Well, I mean, we've got a great working relationship in that we kind of get into a rhythm. You know, I realized that throughout this process, without talking about it, we each kind of just have tackled each task. Like, I'd be framing a dormer at one point, and he'd be cutting the roof in the attic, and then next thing I know, the roles are reversed, and it just is fluid like that. So that's great to work with someone like that. But I thought about Justin often when I was working on this stuff, because I know that Justin works alone a lot of the time.
I'm a loner.
And I was just thinking to myself, I was like, how do you install an 18-foot long piece of PVC trim by yourself? You know, and I know that there's strategies to work alone, but I just think about, like, okay, the efficiency, the accuracy of the joints and all that kind of stuff. That was especially true when we were finding out angles, marking angles for the trim on the rakes to the dormers, where I was standing on the ridge essentially, you know, fussing with that joint, and then we kind of ran the rakes long and then marked them in place, that sort of thing. Let alone having to run all over the roof, essentially, down on the ground to the cut station, then going back and test fitting a piece, you know, that sort of thing, where you could just kind of throw it down to your buddy or your partner or your father in this case. How much longer projects might take if you're working alone, and how, I don't know. So I was just thinking about that. And so I came in, I think it was Monday maybe, and I was like, Justin, how do you do it? Yeah, because I know that he works on a lot of, on his own projects, on his house, that's one thing. But when you're working for a client, where I guess time is money to a degree, you know, how do you navigate that stuff? So do you have any kind of just general insights?
Well, I will start by saying there are some things that you shouldn't do alone. That I found over the years, like, I mean, if you're getting a concrete delivery, obviously you're not doing that by yourself. You're not going to keep up. If you're lifting things that are just too heavy for one person, like a patio door, you got to have more than one person, et cetera, et cetera. There are those things where having a second person is not just convenient. It's like, it's
safe.
It's either safer or made possible by having a second or third pair of hands.
Like installing a window. You can't do that solo.
Depends on the size of the window.
All right.
Honestly. Yeah. If it's a big window, sure, you need at least two people. But a regular double hung, there's no way. I would do that myself all day.
Okay.
It's just nice to have a second person.
Especially if you're installing a bunch of them.
Sure.
It's nice to have someone inside and someone outside.
So it becomes
Right.
it becomes an efficiency thing at that point. But I would, and I may get proven wrong here right now, but I would challenge you guys to come up with something that I couldn't do as good a job on by myself as I could with two people. I would be slower. The job is going to move forward slower, but it's going to move forward. That's the thing. Like I have direct control over everything that I'm working on. And I would argue that sometimes people that get in the mindset of I need another person don't understand what is inherently a more efficient way to do something that you find out when you're working by yourself. Like, so I mean, let's pick an example. Let's put up what you were working on.
Do that like 18-foot long. Or, yeah, do a long length of PVC trim that you need to fit a joint. So there's alignment issues and that sort of thing.
So what is the joint? The joint is at the end where it meets the rake?
Or it's a scarf joint in the field or something like that.
Piece of cake. You got brackets. So you put brackets up every several feet in order that you'd fasten them temporarily to the either if you have no overhangs, you'd fasten it to the house and then have like an L-shaped bracket that sits out so that the piece of trim can just rest on it. If you have an overhang, then you would attach a bracket to the underside of the soffit and have it stick out, and that bracket would be stepped so that it would include the reveal that you want for the fascia overhangs the soffit, and you would actually put that piece of trim up there, then climb up, and now you're just sliding the piece of trim laterally on top of the brackets, and you can walk back and forth on your staging, and you can see both sides of the joint. But I would then argue, so that's how you could accomplish that, but then I would argue you wouldn't even need to do that level of like fussing side to side if you did a better job of measuring and knowing what your tolerances are from the beginning. So, you know, measurement tricks come into play, stop blocks, thrust blocks for rafters, which is, you know, all these little measuring sticks, laser measuring, string lines. There's like, it's an endless array of, a really good book for this is actually, it's a Taunton book, Working Alone by John Carroll. Who we
have a book on it.
I mean, John Carroll's been writing for us for 1,000,001 years, most recently for masonry. But he does a lot of stuff, and he was a remodeler. And he preferred to work alone because he didn't want to have the staffing headaches. And because he liked being in control of every aspect of the job and not kind of wondering if that other guy knew what he was doing and then if he leaves the job and did that thing get done right, and now I've got to kind of springboard and fix it. And there's a lot of great reasons to have a crew. And I've been on jobs where I'm working with other carpenters. We just one example, we did a deck several years ago, one of the Ultimate Deck series? Is that what we called it?
I think so.
We did it in Woodbury with Chris Aarons, yeah. And it was awesome to work with him because we just clicked right away and didn't even have to discuss stuff. We just flew, and it was really nice. But I could have done that whole deck myself, no problem. And Chris works by himself often too.
Do you admit that it might have double the time that it took to build the deck?
You mean if I had to do it by myself?
Yeah.
I don't think double.
Have you?
But yeah, it would have definitely added time.
Have you?
And so for it's in a way it's a silly discussion, but for the sake of having,
thanks, Brian.
For the sake,
I don't think it is.
Well, it's a silly discussion because hey, guys working alone do great work, and guys working alone do great work, and guys working together do great work, and guys working.
Oh yeah, you can make it work either way.
So you can make it work either way, but good work for the client might come down to more than just whether the joint's tight. It might come down to how many days you were in their backyard for, how many days you were in their bathroom for, and you'd have to look at costs. And does the extra time? I'd be curious to see like the extra time that you're charging for of yourself to be working alone versus. And I don't know what I don't know which one would be more expensive and which one would be least expensive.
You're making a good point.
Versus paying two guys.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a good point.
It'd be an interesting thing to.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes just having a dumb pair of hands to hold the other end of the board is cheap. It's a cheap way to get done quick.
And like you and Chris, I worked for a while with these two brothers, GCs. They were known as GCs, but really they did all the work themselves. And they were just like you were describing, you and Chris, like they just worked. They knew each other so well. They worked. Yeah. They didn't speak. They knew exactly what to do. Like you and your dad, didn't matter who was doing what. It was getting done, and it just seemed like and they're partners in this business, and it seemed like such an awesome working relationship.
They're a machine.
The thing is though, like I didn't know Chris's every move so well. It was like that first couple of days you realize he knows everything he's doing, and you know everything you're doing, and you don't need to worry about it. It's just like you're just flowing. And that's an incredible feeling. But there's also a lot of guys, just as much as like the camaraderie and like the awesome carpentry partners that you find are going to exist, you're also going to find guys that are just like a drag or don't get it or can't. They know how to measure these two ways that you taught them, but they can't figure out the third way. That's just an easy extension of those first two. And it just you become babysitter, and it was out of necessity for me. I never knew a different way. I just had to figure out everything for myself. But
did you ever have clients ask about that? Like,
I brought in help for jobs when I needed to get things done faster. But it was never. No, I never.
Well, you had a situation where you were always very clear with your clients that you did this stuff outside of this job.
Yeah. So you're upfront.
I never lost a job because of that. I never had a client say, "Nah, I'm sorry, you're not going to get this done fast enough, so I don't want you."
Yeah.
But and a lot of times in those bigger jobs, you may get stuff done faster on Monday and Tuesday, and then you're on a different job Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, nothing's happening. Whereas if you're working solo, you're there Monday through Friday, working on it every day. I've overheard crews talking about like, hey, we got to get Johnny to go over to 21 Oak Street today and just make an appearance because the client's going to be pissed if nobody shows up today. Just have him go over and do something for an hour or two, and then he can leave again. Like I don't want to deal with that. Like playing the mind games. So maybe if you tracked it out, certainly if you built a house, it's going to be faster, because you can have multiple trades working on the same project at the same time. But you're also going to have days when nothing is happening if you're not working, if you're not doing it all yourself. So it's just a personal decision. But Rob was concerned about the quality when working by yourself. And like Brian said, you certainly could do a crappy job, but I wouldn't rule out hiring somebody if it was just.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not. Yeah.
And I think you have to find that what you were talking about first is you have to find that place where you're stretching yourself to get it done alone, and where quality does start to fall short because something's heavy or
you're going to hurt yourself,
or you're going to hurt
yourself. You got to do this for a long time.
Yeah.
And I put my body in positions where I shouldn't have, where it was stupid, and it becomes. Help is right there, like your dad is in the house, or you have a sibling that lives 5 miles down the road, and it's just stupid and arrogant to try and lift that LVL.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it is that you really are exposed to every single. You have to shift your mindset a little bit and think creatively, and it becomes fun, and you'll start to see carpentry in a different problem solving way that you don't experience when you're working as a team and kind of relying on each other to solve problems. Like when it's just you start to, and you're up against a wall, you start to figure out creative ways to do things safely. So it's cool. But anyway, you should check out that book. It's a really cool book. It's like full of illustrations. It's not really a photo book. It's more like a long-running narrative. And John's voice is awesome. And it has little drawings of little jigs and clamps and how to get around this and how to do this safely by yourself. It's really cool.
Really quick, the last thing I guess we'll talk about my dormers is that I'm still considering some of the materials to use for the exterior trim. I mean, I've made a decision about the AZEK, but in each gable, gable of the dormer, there's going to be a triangle essentially that's just going to be covered with trim because the entire face of the dormer will be trimmed. There's not going to be any siding, and so the two materials that I had been considering was to either make that triangle out of sheet PVC, which can be pretty pricey, and again, talking to Justin, it tends to move quite a bit.
Well, yeah,
or it can move.
To interrupt you, I mean, it will move. Wood expands and contracts with changes in moisture and temperature. Well, changes in moisture. PVC will change based on changes in temperature, and unlike wood, which will move across the grain, PVC will move in every direction. It'll change in thickness, width, length. It's just that it tends to show up the most as length because that's the most cumulative space that it has to move. So if you have an 18-foot long board, it's going to move the most obviously along its length, even though it's percentage-wise the same in every direction. So you have to plan for that. Otherwise, it will buckle and push off the wall and blowout joints and all sorts of stuff. So I was concerned when Rob was talking about doing a full sheet on the front of his dormers that, well, you can do it, but you just got to think about, like, where's my back door? Where's it going to push into and then pull back from? And are all my joints planned in such a way so that it's all going to stay together and look nice?
That would be cool. I mean, I can't do, I think that was, I didn't clearly articulate it, Justin, so I wasn't anticipating using a full sheet, although that would be cool if you could make that happen and just, cut out that window.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's what I imagined.
So they're a little bit wider.
It's
It's a little bit wider than the 4 foot. My dormers are a little bit wider than the 4 foot. So
Then you'd have the whole window would be waste, wouldn't it?
You'd use it for something else.
Yeah, it would be waste. But anyway, so in those gable ends, then we talked. Good.
I saw Gary Striegler cut a whole face frame for a full height, like 10-foot tall corner hutch out of a piece of MDF once. It was great. He just cut,
Oh,
he just
my
made the
goodness.
face frame, just cutting out the doors. Anyway,
Wow.
It was awesome.
And then I considered using MDO, which is plywood with like a kind of a resin or paper facing, a treated
Medium
paper
density
facing.
overlay. Yeah.
And typically that face is on both sides of the plywood, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it's rated for
People use it for signs. It's like sign making,
yeah,
typically.
it's nice stuff.
rated for exterior use.
Beautiful.
That sort of
Takes
stuff.
paint really well, too.
Takes paint really well. Considered using that. The way that the trim is going to align, that there would be on the corners of the dormers, there would be an exposed edge of the MDO.
You'd need miters.
So you would need them. So I was like trying to consider, like, all right, how do I going to treat those ends?
How's Rob going to measure over 4 feet wide with a miter on both sides? He can't measure that. He's going to need like 4 people up there to get that.
Totally. And then I started looking into another product called Extera, which on its face, people are going to be like, oh my God, it sounds like the worst outdoor product ever, because it's exterior grade MDF.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's treated with a zinc borate. Anyway, it's the same material as MiraTech siding and trim, which we've written about before in the magazine, in that exterior trim article that Patrick wrote. We've gotten some reader feedback on the siding and how it's absolutely bomb-proof.
I think Medite might be a third brand.
Medite, but I don't know if
Or is that
Medite...
just for moist?
Medex.
These are Medite too.
Oh, really?
That might just be for damp.
That might be for use like in
applications.
a bathroom or something like that, not exterior use. So again, I looked into this product called Extera, which is made by Geldwen, who also makes MiraTech. It's the same materials, consistent throughout, so you don't have to worry about.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know it was the same brand. I thought
Yeah.
you were just saying it's the same material. It's actually the same product.
It's essentially the same product. I mean, yeah, just a different form. It's
Cool.
not beveled siding and
Cool.
Trim profiles. This comes in 4x8 sheets. Actually, it comes in.
I bet it comes bigger.
It does. It
Yeah.
comes up.
Wow.
It comes in by 2x16. A whole bunch of thicknesses, like 1/2 inch up to a full 1 inch.
Yeah.
And you don't have to miter the end. You could just kind of treat it, prime it and paint it. And it's relatively cheap, I guess, when related to the cost of PVC. I gave Atlantic Plywood a call. They're a supplier in Connecticut, but I think they've got up and down the East Coast. And a 3/4 inch 4x8 sheet of exterior is like $75. So I'm considering going with that. So if anybody out there listening has ever used the stuff, let me know how it's shaped up. It just seems like a cool product. And now I kind of kick myself. I was like, oh, I heard about that MiraTech siding and that trim. I heard it was awesome. Maybe I should have gone with that. But it's cool. It'll all work out.
What are you doing for the siding on the sides of them? Or is there no siding on the sides, the cheek walls of the dormers?
There is.
There's
there's siding on the cheek walls.
Because you got vinyl the rest of the house.
Yeah.
So you're going to do vinyl?
So it's a question of whether I do vinyl to match the house or if I do like a fiber cement siding. Kind of leaning towards doing the vinyl. I just wonder, like, will it look strange?
If you do something different.
Yeah. If I don't keep it consistent.
From the ground, it's going to look like clapboards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
It'll be like J-Channel.
Considering ways, if I was going to opt for vinyl, considering ways to kind of do away with the J channel. I've been trying to research how people have done that with AZEC. I've seen some stuff, people, cutting a rabbet in like AZEK, like 1x, AZEK is not 3/4. It's a true 1 inch. So trying to figure out what the projections of vinyl siding are, and if you can kind of mill a rabbet in the back side of that corner board, let's say, can you sneak that vinyl into that pocket? Could that be weather tight? Vinyl tends to leak anyway, but can you just do it reasonably, I guess, in a reasonable way that would keep out water and not going to let it get behind the corner boards and that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm trying to consider.
Did you, when you did the rake trim on the dormers, did you miter those corners or butt them or what?
No, I mentioned those are butt joints.
Okay. Makes fastening a bit easier. Did you just glue?
I didn't glue them.
You don't follow the directions, Rob, you know?
Yeah.
It's fine home building. We put glue on our AZEK.
That stuff, that's tenacious, right? That glue, that bond is fast.
Why are you asking Rob? He doesn't know.
Strong.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
He's heard
Yeah.
from us.
I've heard good things, Bri.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right.
Cool.
It's coming along, Rob.
Coming along.
Progress.
Speaking of working solo, let me fire up the old oscilloscope here. Pull up this question that I did not have on the list from Paul. He wrote in about double prehung doors. Oh, sorry, Paul. His name's Greg. Wait a minute. What the hell's going on? His email address is Greg, but his name is Paul. All right, Greg Paul.
Keeping you guessing.
Greg Paul is wondering if there's a great method anyone has developed that works great for setting double doors, interior double doors, or if it's always just set one leg and wrestle with the other side till it works. I can get them set well every time. My method feels slow, and I want to get more efficient with this particular task. So this came in last night, but I figured since we were talking about working alone, it seems like it's a nice fit for that. Because for me, it becomes a case of I've switched over to a system of you lay the double. Well, we should identify the problem. Double prehung door. You have like 5/8, 3/4 inch thick jambs that the hinges are attached to the jambs and the hinges are attached to the door. It's prehung in the opening. And as soon as you tip that thing up, because the two doors are not connected, it turns into this whole show where it starts to scissor and
They get cross-legged and stuff.
Yeah, and
yep.
not only that, but the whole thing is so unstable. You're really risking a lot of damage to the frame. And, well, I mean, the doors come kind of bound together with some sort of clips, usually, for shipping. But as soon as you're like, I think I got it to the position where it's pretty well supported, then you have to release the two doors so that you can open it and get to the other side, and then the whole thing just binds and kicks. And so I found the best method for this is to lay the whole pre-assembled unit down on the floor, take the doors out, just pop those hinge pins out, take the doors out, set them aside. Then you take a measurement at the top of the pre-hung door, so the head jamb, right? You measure tight from jam leg to jam leg. Then you cut a piece of wood that's the same, fasten it at the bottom, screw, tack it in with nails so that you can. Actually, pocket screws are even better because then once the door jamb is in place, you can back out those pocket screws and just remove that stick. If you screw it in from the outside of the jam, then you can't get the screws out. So don't make that mistake. You can also pop it in with finished nails, and then when you pop that stick out, you can pull those nails through with some end nippers. But the point being, for those of you who can skip ahead to the point I'm trying to make here is that you put the jam in by itself, all squared up with this stick at the bottom. The stick at the bottom acts as a spreader and keeps the bottom of those jam legs exactly the same width as the top. And now all you have to do is plumb and level, and the thing is perfect.
Yeah.
And then you get it all fastened, you get it all shimmed, then you pop your doors back in. You might have to make some minor adjustments. It's super simple. It's easy on your back. You're not moving around all that weight. If you have to take it in and out of the opening to adjust the jam legs, it's super easy. The doors aren't in the way. It's awesome. If you do want to do it with the doors in place, I can put up an article on the show notes page by John Spear that I shot a long time back called Double Doors Are Twice as Tricky. His method includes tipping up the whole pre-assembled unit with the doors in place, but he uses galvanized finish nails, hand drive nails, to go through the jams and into the rough opening because they have just enough kind of grit to them that they create just enough friction through the wood that you can sort of adjust the jambs in and out riding along the shank of the nail, and it'll stay put so you can make adjustments. And then once you're happy with everything, you can put shims in. And it's a pretty slick kind of workaround. He works with he had worked with his wife on this job, who was also a builder. So they had two people to be able to wrestle the door into place. So that's helpful.
They did. Of course, it's helpful.
I think Gary. We have one with Gary too on the same topic, don't we?
Oh, we did French doors with him. Yeah.
Double French doors.
Yeah.
Yep. So we could put that up.
Gary works solo sometimes. Rob.
Sometimes he does.
All right, so we'll put some double door stuff up there for you.
Make some some exterior trim with
regular
Med-X.
MDF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Med-X.
I've used it somewhere because there's some places.
I don't think it's in the magazine. I just saw him do it.
I don't know if it's ready for exterior use, but
I think it is.
We'll put some links up to all these materials that we mentioned.
Yeah, because I remember he was using a trammel to cut this big arch top piece of trim.
Interesting.
That's what he chose to use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you could ask him, if you're considering to ask him, if it's stood up to the test of time.
All right. Barry writes, "Hey guys, really like the podcast and the new design build section of the magazine." Oh, for people who don't know, we have a design build department in the magazine, written and illustrated by Marianne Cusado, who is the author of Get Your House Right. It's a book
we should get
love.
her on the show.
We should get her on the show.
She'd be great with this question.
And so you can check that out in the magazine now. Barry's looking for advice on how to improve the basic colonial trim package that many homes have. My home was built in 1991 and has stock 3 1/4 inch colonial casing around windows and doors and 6-inch one-piece colonial baseboard. There's some faux paneled walls, very little crown, and no window stools. The architectural style of the home overall, if any, is colonial, with 2 asymmetrical front-facing gables and a 2-story entryway. I like the flat stock, larger head casing, and beading associated with the Craftsman style, but it seems that this would involve ripping out the current trim, which is just too wasteful. Other than adding a back band and crown, what are your suggestions on where to start for improving the appearance of a basic cookie-cutter colonial molding package? What are your thoughts about mixing styles, i.e. colonial side casing with Craftsman-style head casing, etc.? He goes on to say, as a side note, that he's frustrated that he goes to his local lumber yards and tries to talk to them about, what materials to use and trying to find people that are knowledgeable in trim styles outside of what they sell on the sample board, and that he's frustrated he can't find any help. And it's
Where is he from? Do we know?
I don't have it written down here.
Kukin Brothers just kind of popped into my head, who's a supplier, I think, in the New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, who kind of specialize in trim. And
it's Kuiken.
Yeah, you could look them up on Instagram. They got a lot of information on quality trim profiles, style guides, things like that. But
Windsor One had or has a similar program too, where you kind of pick a style and they'll set you up with the whole suite of molding styles. But that's almost a separate topic that we don't need to go into, because really the heart of Barry's question is he doesn't like his trim. It's blah. It feels like it doesn't have a style. How do you go about improving upon it?
Yeah.
I know Brian had some thoughts on this.
Well,
what do you think, Bri?
Yeah, I don't know. If you first of all, I think he's right that the trim package that he's describing that he likes isn't going to look. It probably isn't going to fit this house unless maybe he really, really carried it throughout.
The arts and crafts or the Craftsman style.
The arts and crafts style. Unless he really found some ways to carry it throughout and added some other things that, I don't know what his wall paneling looks like, but added some other details in the house that really helped pull it together. I think that'd be a stretch.
Yeah.
One of the things, I think about him not having window stools, and we see a lot of thicker walls in houses now, and in walls with thicker houses where you have these deep jambs, deep window jambs, I kind of like that picture framed trim. But in most houses where you don't have those deep jambs, somehow that doesn't really do it for me. So one of the things that I thought of was, could he add stools, and would that make an impact on the way his window trim looked?
Right, and that would be fairly easy to do. You could just take off that bottom,
just the bottom piece,
make a level cut on the bottom of each jamb leg, and then fasten a sill to the wall.
Yeah. So I wondered if adding stools would give some dimension, some detail to the window sills or the window casings that would be nice. really then I just started to think, are there places, could he make some trim improvements, not at the windows, not at the casings, not at the baseboard, that would just sort of enhance the character of the house? Leave that stuff alone. I mean, the way he says faux paneling, again, I don't know what it looks like, but my guess is that
I'm sure it's those boxed, the wainscot that's just like
sort of applied
picture frame on the wall, and then the drywall is painted,
Okay.
so it looks like it's raised panel. That's what I'm guessing.
So I wonder if
Based on a 1991. Sorry, Barry, but it sounds like you have a McMansion.
Yeah, it sounds more like a McMansion than a colonial.
Yeah.
But that's what we call them.
Not too many colonials with a 2-story entrance, Brian.
But he can add crown, and which he mentioned.
Yep.
And not the right crown with the right proportions, and certain rooms depending on maybe a dining room doing something special with the crown, some built up crown or something like that. I don't know that adding a back band's going to do.
Well, so
I kind of like that. Well, I guess it depends.
It can add some dimension.
It can.
And a shadow line.
For people who don't know what a back band is, it's essentially like an L-shaped piece of decorative molding that you can put onto the outside edge of your casing, and it kind of rabbits back to. It has a rabbit in it, which is what makes an L-shaped cut, and it just dresses up and widens your molding and and gives it a little more depth.
Yeah.
So people often use it when they're adding wainscot because the casing might not be deep enough to carry the additional layers that you're putting that are butting up to it, or in the traditional sense, it would be like you'd have a flat casing and then you would put this decorative back band on the outside edge to give it some character. But yeah, you can buy back bands and add it to existing casings to make them look wider and more detailed, but it's hard to say. Well, it's hard to say basic colonial trim package. I mean, it's stock 3 1/4 colonial casing. Are you guys reading that as like the bead with the one little panel mold, and then sometimes that's sold as like Windsor casing?
Yeah.
That's what you're.
That's what I was.
That's what you're picturing.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know that adding a back band to that is gonna.
Especially without a stool.
One
and it's
thing
going to be on the bottom too, and
Stool, and it's funny. I just quickly looked up because for people who don't know what the stool is, they might be thinking
I was going to compliment
the apron.
I was going to compliment him.
They might be thinking the sill.
people call it a sill.
They call it a sill,
I
which
was
is
going
the
to
stool.
compliment him on saying stool. I was impressed that
Yeah.
they knew the difference.
Yeah.
Stool is interior, sill, and it's basically the interior of what everyone calls a sill,
Yep.
and the sill is the exterior.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then typically you have an apron beneath the
Apron
stool.
is the horizontal board below it.
Yep.
We did an article a long time back with Rick Arnold on built-up molding.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if it was I think that was a new construction thing, but he showed several different assemblies of trim that you could build, so you could combine different moldings to make more elaborate casing profiles. So maybe you'll find something. I'll put that up on the notes for him and for anybody else interested in something similar, that maybe there's some solution in there that you'll go, oh, I could do that, and that would look good. I don't know. But, in some ways, you're just trying to kind of put lipstick on a pig.
Well,
If you really don't like your trim, what you're suggesting is putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah, and a lot of times these houses have, especially on the first floor, they have these sort of large cased openings going from, you walk into the 2-story foyer, and to the one side you have a living room, to the other side you have a dining room. There's large cased openings that with that trim, it's not big enough. It's not proportioned well for those big cased openings.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's something you can do in those locations.
Right.
Yeah.
That's often a place where you can take a departure and it's okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if you start adding profiles, though, because, I mean, in order to look its best, it's all about, and you guys, we've talked about this on the show, but it's about that proportion. And so if you start to, let's say we build out these windows, cased opening, you add some crown, how does that relate to the base? Which you can't do too much with the base.
You can't do too much with it.
But maybe that's something that you actually do tear out and replace,
Yeah,
it's interesting.
But I agree with Brian. I don't think that craftsman style casing is going to look right in that house.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. All right. That's going to wrap us up. So we'll be back next week with some more questions and some more topics to discuss. If you have questions or topics you'd like to hear us discuss, shoot us an email, fhbpodcast@taunton.com. If you like the show, help us out with a review on iTunes, because I want to break the iTunes top 20 by the end of the year. I feel like it's a pretty realistic goal. You know?
Where are we now?
Probably 9 million. So we just got it. We got a little.
We're going to beat out the Joe Rogan podcast in no time here.
We got a little movement to go, Brian.
Yeah.
But I think with the audience's help, we could get there.
We've been in worse places.
Let's see where we're at. Let's see where we're at next week. Rob, how many ratings do we have right now?
How many ratings?
Yeah, how many ratings on iTunes?
You want to
Am I putting you on the spot? Hold on,
I don't have a device. You want me to work on a desktop and a PC?
I'm going to pull it up right now because I want to set the bar. This is unplanned. Please stay tuned. We currently have. We need some elevator music. Jeff will put some elevator music behind this while I'm looking it up.
I'm going to recap my notes. You know how like on the news sometimes
we have 99 ratings right now.
Cool.
Let's see what we can get up to for next week. We'll check back, see if we have any changes. So yeah, FHPpodcast@taunton.com. You can listen to the show on our website as well and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. And thank you for listening. Until next time, this is Justin for Brian and Rob saying happy building.